Who's ever ready to run?
Let's do this.
Let's go.
Welcome.
Go on up.
Come on in close here, everyone.
Have you guys come in a little closer?
Yeah, come in.
Still closer?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody could
Perfect.
practically. That's very cool. Thumbs up.
Yep, we're good.
Welcome, everyone. Mayor Lisa Brown. Thank you all for being here. When I moved to Spokane in my 20s, housing was affordable and easy to find, not just for me, but for everyone of all ages and income levels. We all know it's not that way anymore. Every night, there are hundreds of people sleeping on streets, in shelters. There are others doubled up in households, one step away from sleeping in their cars or on the streets. We're also dealing with an opioid crisis that has ravaged families in every neighborhood in our city and in our region. If we're going to have meaningful impact in the face of these challenges, we need a plan. Frankly, we've needed one for years. There are many factors that contribute to housing instability and homelessness. Over the past year, my administration has been focused on identifying root causes, identifying the gaps in our current system, making investments in proven solutions to move the needle, gathering data so we can continue to improve based on the evidence of what works. In the past year, we have made many investments. I'll mention just a few. We've expanded our co-responder teams in police and fire and with our housing outreach team. We've invested opioid dollars in partnership with Spokane County to expand sobering beds and services. We have the High Utilizer Initiative, which is taking on the small number of individuals that have the biggest impact on emergency room and first responder and other public budgets. We've instituted the CORE plan to expand police resources downtown. We brought back neighborhood resource officers. We've hired a special assistant U.S. attorney to prosecute narcotics crimes. And that's just a short list. Today, we're announcing a package of proposals to truly address homelessness and root causes contributing to people who are suffering in our community or barely hanging on. This isn't about tinkering on the edges, finding Band-Aid fixes. As I said, we have needed a plan for years, and now we have one. It's called Home Starts Here. Home Starts Here is our guiding comprehensive plan. These are ordinances that will address our all-of-the-above approach at preventing people from becoming homeless, responding and navigating them off the streets, and building more housing supply at all levels to improve the economic security of our residents. We are also announcing an ordinance to create process and safeguards for siting of shelters and good neighbor agreements. And we are listening to neighbors' concerns about the impacts of homelessness and announcing a citywide ordinance that addresses unauthorized camping and protects access to public property, parks, sidewalks, and public spaces in every neighborhood in Spokane. The first proposal we are announcing is what we call the Home Starts Here initiative. This is a unified strategy that meaningfully addresses the complex factors that contribute to housing instability. It focuses on H, healthcare, O, outreach and navigation. M, multidisciplinary, multi-department engagement and enforcement. And E, economic security programs for people in our community. We see the need and value in a guiding plan that focuses on these specific areas, where they intersect and how they are shaping the work of all city departments. And when I say that, I just want to emphasize this all-of-city effort. We have fire and police. We have housing, neighborhood services. We have code enforcement, planning, public works, and transportation, all focused on initiatives that make and improve community safety. Our ordinance also establishes metrics, indicators of success. We want to measurably reduce the number of Spokane residents who are housing cost burdened, because they could be the next people experiencing homelessness. We need to add housing units at all income levels, expand home ownership rates, especially among groups historically excluded from housing markets. And we need to increase, at least defend, the percentage of our population who have access to health care. Now I'd like to bring up Councilman Zach Sapone to speak to the next ordinance in the package.
Hi, everyone. So today, in collaboration with the administration, Council has been working on updating the ordinances that we talked about since last September at the roundtable discussions. So we're excited to announce new ordinances that codify best practices for sitting and activating of inclement weather centers, as well as emergency and transitional housing facilities. This proposal will change the requirements for inclement weather activation from a temperature measure to a heat index measure. So this takes into account things like humidity, wind chill, and how hot or cold the weather feels, not just the actual measured temperature. This is a much better measure and indicator of inclement weather than a simple temperature activation measure. This ordinance will also codify the city of Spokane, what the city of Spokane has already been doing in citing new locations in city-funded shelters. This includes community engagement and neighborhood notice requirements to any new shelter with above 20 beds. Finally, this proposal would set a requirement and outline a process for a good neighbor agreement between the city of Spokane and shelter providers. This process would facilitate communication between stakeholders, including neighborhood councils, immediately adjacent business owners, and the city of Spokane and the providers. These policy items directly emerged from the homeless roundtable discussions that we had and discussions from our neighborhood councils. And they're responsive to what the community has been asking for. There's widespread support for a lot of these proposals and incorporate perspectives across the political spectrum. I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues on council to getting these enacted into law. And next up, we have, you want to go again?
Thanks. Next, we have Assistant Police Chief Wall, and he's here to discuss our citywide ordinance related to unauthorized camping and obstruction of access to public property.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. I'm Steve Wool. I'm a current Assistant Police Chief for the Spokane Police Department, and prior to this appointment, I had worked out of the downtown precinct. The third ordinance package that the mayor discussed really talks about the engagement and enforcement piece of an individual who's obstructing access to a public way or camping on public property. This ordinance consolidates the existing laws into one singular united law that really expands citywide, like the mayor talked about, not just in our downtown core. We have seen the most success when we are able to engage an individual and provide services to them so that this individual is not moved from one area to another and not provided that help. By working alongside our service providers, our goal of connecting them with services and getting them off the streets is really a win-win for Spokane. This ordinance provides up to 7 days to allow our outreach providers the opportunity to go and navigate these individuals into housing or into treatment. So like I said, they are not just moved from one area to the next. I will note though that this waiver is, however, for the encampment, does not necessarily need to be 7 days if there's a public health concern or a public safety concern. This kind of mirrors the existing process that we're working right now with our encampment resolution, and that we work so closely with our providers and with code. The Spokane Police Department has worked collaboratively alongside this current administration to really bring this new proposal and make these changes to this ordinance that will really provide us a clear package as we deal with folks who are really struggling. So thank you, and I'm going to pass it back over to the mayor at this point.
I just want to acknowledge that we believe these ordinances are a big step forward in the balanced approach necessary to accomplish this work, but we're not stopping here. There will be additional measures. The whole point of gathering the evidence and data is so that we can continue to improve. An approach very much championed by our police chief, Kevin Hall. But we also are in the preparation phases of allocating a new round of opioid settlement dollars. Assistant City Administrator Maggie Yates is working right now on that. Investments that will expand our navigation services, make more specific investments in opioid use disorder treatment. We intend to put a new round of funding proposals to council, including more mobile treatment options and investing in Maddie's Place to treat infants and families battling opioid use disorders. And while this is an all-of-city engagement, in terms of city government, it really needs to be all of city in terms of all of our providers and others in the community who want to be part of this. Just yesterday, I attended an event at Bethel AME Church in which over 90 faith leaders came together. Drew Peterson from Knox Presbytery to Pastor Walter Kendricks from Morning Star Baptist. And they came together to discuss their experiences in partnering with us, in providing small-scale shelters, and learn about options for utilizing church property and resources to take on affordable housing in our city. That was very inspiring to me that we're not stopping here. The whole city of Spokane has compassion and wants to see this meaningful change take place. So with that, I'm happy to take a few questions. Please, I'll let Aaron call on people.
Yeah, in terms of these ordinances, where are we in terms of establishing those full-time? Where does that process lie?
Yes, the ordinances, as Councilmember Zappone said, and Councilmember Dillon is here as well, we have been working on them in collaboration with council. That doesn't mean they're finished. Now the job goes to the city council, who will have hearings in committee on these ordinances, take further public input, and ultimately it will be up to them on the timing and when and exactly what to pass into law.
Additional questions?
I'm going to follow up here. For Assistant Police Chief Wool, so 7 days to get, if you see somebody lying on the sidewalk obstructing a public pathway, what does that process exactly look like? Could you clarify so I can understand that a little better?
So that 7 days is for an encampment. If somebody is blocking a sidewalk, there's specific language in there that talks about that obstruction. That's something that we can deal with immediately. We don't have to wait those 7 days. Our goal is always to have that education and engagement. Because like I said earlier, that's what gets them into wraparound services, so that it's not that city block today, another city block tomorrow, but we don't have to wait those 7 days when we have something where it's impeding traffic, impeding pedestrians, things like that.
And would that be a housing outreach team, or would that be the police working with those folks?
Together, we're a team. So that both our outreach team, our homeless outreach team, our service providers, our code enforcement, they work together on that.
Hi. So Mayor Brown, as far as the scattered housing initiative that started like barely 6 months ago, where do you see home contributing to like that growth there already?
I'm sorry, just clarify that question again.
Where do you see like the new home initiative adding to the scattered housing growth?
Yeah, so the navigation center and the small scale shelters are part of the home initiative. They are in the outreach part of the home initiative, where we specify that the navigation center, which is referral only, takes up to 30 people, and then consequently refers them to their next step in the process, which might be one of these small shelters, but it could be treatment and recovery services. It could be a transitional housing facility. It could be going even into permanent supportive housing. Say we encounter a veteran who is eligible for a VA type housing situation, we may be able to navigate them directly into housing. So it is a central part of our initiative, and we're measuring the effects of each part of the initiative. So we were dismayed to find that early on in the administration, the actual housing percentage from people that had been at the track shelter was a very low number, under 10%. With some of our other initiatives, we are seeing much higher percentages of people being successfully navigated into housing. And then we also measure if they in fact return to homelessness again. So this is a approach which relies heavily on continuing to learn more about what works and trying to put more resources into what works. And it relies heavily on partnerships. I want to emphasize again, because it doesn't always come across very clearly, that despite some issues where the city and the county might not be completely aligned, we are very aligned, as the joint meeting we had last week, very aligned on how we respond to the opioid crisis. And we are working together on both state investments that we're asking for, federal, but as well co-investing the opioid settlement dollars that we currently have in things like sobering beds and expanded treatment for people. We want ultimately 24-hour walk-in for someone who's ready for treatment, because if they are ready at 2 in the morning, but the facility at the health department doesn't open till 9 a.m. or 8, then that gap is where really bad things can happen for them and other consequences for our community. So we still have a lot of work to do to fill the gaps, but I feel very strongly that by laying out this comprehensive approach, we're really on the right track.
You mentioned a little bit about the metrics and data collection. I was curious if you could expand on that a little bit more outside of, returning to homelessness, but you talked about cost burden renters, home ownership, healthcare access. Tell me a little bit more about the data collection itself and how wide-ranging this is actually.
Well, again, this is partnership. We don't personally collect all this data. We refer in our home initiative to other plans in which some of this information is tracked and monitored. We partner with the Continuum of Care on 5-year strategies around homelessness. We partner with the county and the valley on and the regional health district on a homelessness management information system dashboard, and we partner with Greater Spokane Incorporated on what they call the SEDS, which is an economic development plan. There are a variety of entities in the community that are collecting this information. The goal is to pull them into one place and to continually use them to drive our policy and our strategies.
I got one more for you.
Sure.
Just in terms of the Home Starts Here plan, you mentioned establishing economic security for folks. Could you kind of clarify that a little bit and give an example of what that might look like?
Yes, thanks for asking that. We have a high percentage of households in Spokane that are known by an acronym known as ALICE. That's Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. Another way to think about it is folks that are living paycheck to paycheck. And so they are one medical crisis, car breakdown, child care falls through, or disruption in family matters away from potentially being homeless themselves. So we want to focus on that. The more we can do upstream, where we are addressing people right where they're at while they still have housing. Some of that's rental assistance, some of that's eviction, working with people around eviction to prevent evictions. Some of it is connecting them to resources that they're qualified for, but they don't even know it. So many people in our city, we did a special campaign because they didn't know they were qualified for the Working Families Tax Credit. That's money coming back from Olympia that they deserve. Our own city utilities have a discount rate for seniors and others that are income constrained. We want them to take advantage of that. All of those things contribute to a more solid income level for Spokane residents, which just keeps them more cushioned from the kind of instability that could lead to them being out there.
Any other questions? All right, thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.